Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Another action-packed podcast today, data analytics news, we've got it all. We're going to be talking about miner performance versus Bitcoin, the short situation the sector is currently experiencing, and some top headlines out of the Bitcoin mining space in today's trading. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the Bitcoin miners right now and your strategy moving forward. With that being said, let's get into today's episode. Well, Anthony, another day and another all-time high for Bitcoin, now surpassing $112,000 US per coin. Unfortunately, we didn't snap the photo right when it was above 12,000, just below here, 11,527. We've got a 5-day and a 1-year chart, Anthony, to take a quick look at here. In terms of the 5-day, this is super interesting. We're now in what's known as price discovery because we're above those all-time highs, but you can see still very volatile. We've got some big swings up 2,000, down 3,000. So as always, volatility, I guess a feature more so than a flaw in the world of Bitcoin.
Yeah, we've raised the volatility literally on every podcast we've produced, and that's over 300. You know, it is a volatile asset, and if you looked at it from a daily perspective, you probably would. You would think twice about investing. I've actually spoke to people today and asked them if they've got any Bitcoin, and they said no, it's too volatile. He said the price was changing thousands a day, and I said you're absolutely right. I said, but you know, if you look back 14 years and where we've come from, that when them two pieces were purchased for 10,000 Bitcoin at $30, and then look at what those 10,000 Bitcoin are worth now at just over $1.1 billion. How many pieces could you buy now? So, you know, that's, in fact, how many, you could probably buy Pizza Express. That's how much money. You could buy the pizza company. That's what you could do there with the money. So, it's as I say, you have to draw yourself out, and that's why we like to put these 5-day charts. We put a year-to-date chart in there, which even shows, you know, how much Bitcoin has increased. It was around about $60,000 on you know, a year ago. So, you know, it's come a long way. It's nearly doubled in value over the year there, and it looks like it's still got more to go. And as I say, we never give price predictions, but we like to listen to other people who give price predictions, and they're telling us straight away that, you know, this is not the end this year. We're in a bull cycle, maybe till the first quarter of 2026. So, and then someone else said to me, I'm probably too late to buy Bitcoin. Well, actually, you might be just about right, because if it goes to $1 million, you'd be wishing you bought it at 112 rather than buying it at $1 million. So that's another perspective to look at as well. So, but I'm pleased with the week's performance. Not so pleased with the miner performance, though. You know, that's been disappointing. You know, Bitcoin is at all-time high. Miners should be somewhere getting close to where they're all-time high, because if your revenues are at the highest in terms of, you know, when you're mining Bitcoin, it's the highest there. And we've seen the hash price now, I think, get to $59 a petahash per day. That's as high as it's been effectively since the halving. So prior to the halving, it was at $110. Then it's dropped obviously to 55 and then started dropping low. We've seen it reach $37, which is not great for the mining sector. But at $59, it gives a few of them miners a bit more breathing space. As we said before, in Q1, only one miner was able to really produce Bitcoin and cover all its costs, and that's all the costs, not just the ones that miners want to pick and choose which ones go into the account. And we want to see more miners. We want to see a lot more miners make money, because that's the backbone of the blockchain. If the miners aren't doing the job, then it'll all fall down. So we need the miners to stay, you know, doing their job, and obviously trying to make a margin. We're not asking them to make, thousands and thousands and millions of dollars, but to actually achieve a margin by delivering Bitcoin and by auditing the blockchain on a regular basis.
Well, I'd like them to make thousands and thousands and millions of dollars, Anthony. We're going to come on to the gross margin update, as you alluded to, improving there a little bit later in the presentation. The $1 million question for me, Anthony, is not why did he buy the pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin? It's where's the pizza guy now that received the 10,000 Bitcoin back in the day? I would love to know the story of that.
He sold the day after, believe it or not. The day the
Did he?
Bitcoin came in, he sold the day after. He wanted his $30 back, and I bet every night he goes to sleep thinking, why? Why did I do that? Because, even if he just kept half of it, got $15 and kept 5,000 Bitcoin, he could be quaffing champagne in any hotel in any part of the world, traveling first class, and not have to worry about another pizza in his life.
Yeah, he'd be up there with Crypto in Dubai. Anyways, back to the Bitcoin charts here, you guys. HODL 15 talking about this momentum we've seen. Good morning, stay humble, stack Bitcoin, HODL. A great mantra to live towards here, you guys. And no wonder the Bitcoin price has been increasing so heavily. We've got another chart from HODL 15 showing the ETF inflows. Just phenomenal, Anthony. Hundreds of millions of dollars by the day flowing in. You can see only 2 red outflow days. And just yesterday alone, $609 million of net inflows. You can probably see this in your personal friend group, you guys. I know no one was texting me about Bitcoin, ETFs, miners, MicroStrategy, anything like that a few weeks ago, and I'm starting to get more and more DMs and texts now. And that's that snowball we've talked about, Anthony. As people start investing in IBIT or one of these ETFs, Bitcoin price goes up, their investment goes up, they start telling their friends, they start putting more money in, and that appears to be what's happening here with the snowball momentum building.
Yeah, and let's put this in perspective there. You can see May the 21st was it $609 million worth of Bitcoin going into the ETFs. That's just one set of investment funds receiving cash to buy Bitcoin. The daily total in terms of mining is around about 54 million. So, to the sharp people out there, that's 11 days of production the ETFs bought on the 21st of May. And go down that list there and see how many times 54 million goes into those numbers. You're buying, production vastly quicker than they can ever do it. And bear in mind, we're in the last million of Bitcoin now. 20 million Bitcoin has been produced already. The last million is going to take 115 more years to produce because of the halvings. They've got to be buying it from somewhere. There's got to be people on the exchanges thinking, I need to sell now. It's 112,000. These ETFs going in there and buying it. And that's just one thing. You've also got the likes of Michael Saylor. You've got a vast number of other companies that we'll come on to in a second that are buying Bitcoin, incessantly. And we've even got now the states, 2 of the states in America, Texas, well on the way to also approving the purchase of Bitcoin using state funds. And for one of those states, I think the pension funds, which they can, I think, spend up to 10% of the fund and put it into crypto. Now, that's not saying they're going to do that, but it gives them the ability to do that. That could be, again, significant buying just to feed that requirement. And if and maybe when is more likely, when the US as a national level approves a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and we know they're looking to try and get somewhere in the region of 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years, where they're going to buy it from. So I think at the moment now the price of Bitcoin is going up just as we expected to. It's an economic thing there when there isn't the amount of supply available and demand is incessant like it is now. The only one place the Bitcoin price can go is higher.
Yeah, that's certainly our theory here, Anthony. And I'm not going to assume anything, but last year at the Bitcoin conference, we had Donald Trump in attendance, and Senator Cynthia Lummis proposed the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. Wouldn't it be ironic or interesting if they initiated the buying or took the next step, I guess, at this year's Bitcoin conference, Anthony? Now, you also brought up Texas, the state level strategic Bitcoin reserve. Interesting fact, if Texas were its own country, I think it would be eighth in terms of GDP around the world. So it may sound like a state level reserve, but in actuality, this state is many times larger than many countries around the world. So again, Anthony, some big buying pressure coming in. You made reference to corporate buying as well. HODL 15, another phenomenal table here. You can see just in the top 85 companies globally that hold Bitcoin, over 800,000 Bitcoin are now held on corporate balance sheets. Every single number on this page, or every arrow, I should say, is going in one direction, and that's up as well, Anthony. And as we alluded to yesterday on the program, our own little power mining analysis channel has welcomed 19 of the 85 CEOs on this list.
Absolutely. And it's an impressive list, and thankfully, in that sort of top 10 of companies there, quite a few of those are the mining companies that we actually cover and analyze. And that's, that you would think that's to be expected. Mining companies, mine Bitcoin, therefore, it wouldn't be unreasonable for them to hold some Bitcoin. And two or three of those miners have been hodling a lot over the last 18 months. The likes of Mara Digital, Riot Platforms, CleanSpark, and Hut's been holding its ground. Maybe not as hodling as much of the production, but not really spending into the actual hodl that it's got there, and it's got over 10,000 Bitcoin there. So. Really, really big. I mean, it's going to take a lot to catch strategy. They're already up to 576,000. They're trying to chase the BlackRock ETF, and BlackRock is literally, that is a country in terms of power. If BlackRock want things to happen, it generally happens. They're so powerful. They've got trillions and trillions of dollars of assets under management. They can make things change in a day, and they hold over 600,000. But Michael Saylor and Strategy are looking to try and catch them, both trying to achieve 5% of all the Bitcoin that's going to be available. So well on the way to doing that, more than halfway on the way to doing that, if you look at it, from a number perspective. And not many people would bet against them achieving it.
No, they certainly wouldn't. And there's only so many 5% to go around when you start thinking 70% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in the last 10 years. So most people not really willing to sell it. Similar to you and I guess our outlook here, Anthony. Now, if you look down that list, almost in last position, a company by the name of Thumbs Up Media, currently holding 19 Bitcoin. This one caught my attention, Anthony. They've been on the program previously a few years ago, a social media platform company, essentially working on a decentralized solution for social media advertising for brands. They've come out with some massive Bitcoin related news, putting up a $200 million raise, which has now been upsized to $500 million, with the intent to use this for Bitcoin acquisition strategy within Thumbs Up Media. So we reached out. We've got the CEO actually coming on tomorrow, Anthony, to talk about this big press release. But another example of companies maybe that don't have a long-standing background in Bitcoin that are starting to move over to this Bitcoin standard.
Yeah, and as I say, we've talked about adoption. I was talking about the analogy of the iPhone 3. Maybe we're getting closer to the iPhone 5 now, but still a long way to go to get to the 16. We've still got a few hurdles to get through, and but this is all positive news. I mean, I'm still waiting for the negative news story, and someone's just sold a chunk of Bitcoin. Even Elon Musk and Tesla are still holding a significant amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they've held that since 2021. So they can see the benefit of having Bitcoin, irrespective of the feelings towards cryptocurrency itself.
Most definitely. Now, that's not the only interview we're hosting tomorrow. We've also got DMG. They just came out with Q2 earnings. They've been aggressively growing their hash rate this year, installing new hydro miners with direct chip cooling. We're going to be getting an update from Sheldon and Steve on the program tomorrow going into the weekend. And that's really a great segue into the miner update here, Anthony. In terms of where the miners are trading today. Now, you mentioned in the intro, miners a little bit disappointing. We oftentimes tell subscribers look at hash price to really gauge miner performance. As you alluded to, hash price is looking as best it has since the halving event. However, the miners still, in many cases, not anywhere near their 52-week highs.
No, no, no. There's many of them are significantly distant away from the 52-week highs, and a lot of that was sort of, in 2024 before we even started getting any of the heights that we're going to now with Bitcoin price. But on today's basis, there we have IREN leading the pack at the moment. They're over 5%. Bit Digital having a good day there. Also, Bitdeer. Gryphon Mining, again, we talked about them in recent weeks, this merger with Hut 8, and the Gryphon shareholders are expecting to get somewhere about 2% of that company. Well, with a market capitalization of 91 million, that'll give the company somewhere in the region of a 5 billion market capitalization. So I'll be waiting with bated breath to see what that final valuation comes up with there. But still a lot of volume, 9.43 million shares trading in Gryphon, and we're only three and a half hours into trading. So, but you can see there quite big trades there. I mean, Bit Digital, 19 million trades already, volume already, and an average of 15. So well above the average, and only, as I say, only literally over just over 3 hours of trading. TeraWulf's already gone past its average volume as well. CIFR and Riot very close to their average volume. Bitfarms well over its average volume. Hive double its average volume there. Mara well over the volume. So all these shares are trading heavily today in the sort of first three and a half hours of trading, which that obviously a lot of volatility. Not all purchases shares, because we've got a few companies there. We've got CleanSpark, we've got DMG who've just released their results. We'll talk a bit about those in a minute, and we've got Soluna Holdings, who we'll also talk about in a minute. And we had John Belazaire and John Tunison on the podcast yesterday. Welcome the CFO to the podcast, and gave a great update about earnings and what's coming forward in 2025 and beyond. And it looks exciting for the company. When you look at megawatts, they got over 200 megawatts on projects coming online. They're going to have at least a couple of projects working in tandem. That's something that they've never done before. And so really looking to start seeing those revenues coming into the company. But bear in mind, the market's only giving them a value of about $10 million at the moment. And they are certainly, from an operational perspective, punching above that weight there. So let's see how that stock performs as we go forward. But plenty of news updates from Soluna already this year, and we'll give you this morning's update a little later in the podcast.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, certainly will. It's nice you bring up the volume element there, Anthony. It's almost like us referencing the network difficulty on Bitcoin price versus share price and volume. Interesting, though, a lot of attention coming back to the sector, and you can see that in the daily volume here as well. Now, we've had a number of CEOs on the podcast recently talk to us about this short situation the miners have found themselves in, essentially because of the convertible notes. Companies, hedge funds have now taken out short positions to hedge out their strategies or achieve that neutral delta position that we talked about yesterday on the podcast. This has put a lot of short selling pressure on the miners themselves, anywhere from 20 to 30% in some situations. CleanSpark being one of the most heavily shorted. You can also see struggling on the board today, hovering right around that pivotal $10 per share milestone. So it is difficult, Anthony, to, as you say, watch Bitcoin hit all-time highs. Hash price perform very, very well, and the miners still flounder here. But we have noticed A lot of times, almost like a spring coiling up. We'll see a few of these days, and then that's when you get the big double-digit moves for the miners. So time will tell if that occurs again, but we've seen it in the past. The other thing we're starting to see in terms of the numbers, and you've put out a great tweet today talking about the different time frames here. So you've got 1 day, 5 day, 1 month, year to date, 1 year, and you can see green is slowly taking over the red on this table as well.
Yeah, and it makes a bit more sense to show more time periods, because one time period, if I was just put today's increase, it doesn't really give you a flavour, or the 5 day change, or the 1 month or year to date. So I've included the 1 year change as well, just to show you in the last year that some of the miners have actually outperformed Bitcoin. So we look at Core Scientific up 160%, Bitdeer up 150%. Hut up 66% and TeraWulf up 81%. All those companies outperforming Bitcoin over the last year. So when people are saying why haven't the miners increased? Well, there's 4 or 5 of them that have done really, really well. If you look at the last month has been really good for the mining companies. I mean, bear in mind that period from December through to sort of March was very dire for the miners, and a lot of them have lost prices there, lost value over that period. Stock prices really hit the average of 23% year-to-date change for the miners there. But that last month, up 30% in terms of what they've done there. And then the 5 day, still showing all green apart from one mine there. And today, as you can see, majority is red, and we've already highlighted IREN and CleanSpark. And I think this table actually was before markets open today, so it's not reflective of the prices now that we're seeing, but just shows you from a 1 day perspective there. But yeah, it's good to show all the periods. Gives people a bit more data, so they can start thinking about where they need to be, which stocks have done really well up to now, which ones should be looking to do better than they are. And it also put on there the 52-week high, 52-week low there. So, you can look at likes of Marathon there, share price on this table, 15.84. It's actually a bit lower than that at the moment. But the 52-week high is $30.28. So literally got to double in share price to get to its 52-week high. It did hit a low of $9.81. So if you were lucky to get in at $9.81 when it hit that low earlier this year, then that would have been a good opportunity to sort of like have an increase. Even at today's prices, you'd have been close to nearly doubling your money there. And so having all that data there gives people a chance to sort of like take stock of what's happened over the last year and on shorter period timeframes.
Yeah, it's good information. Two key takeaways for me. Number one, as you said, there are miners that are outperforming Bitcoin on every time frame, Anthony. So I don't necessarily think the miners are down and out by any means. The other key takeaway for me, Bitcoin, if you look at every single time interval, the only one that's green across the board there, aside from the daily increase, and as we say, this was yesterday's data, but again, proof that Bitcoin over the long term, you guys, whether you're looking at 5 day, 1 month, year to date, 12 month, does tend to go up and to the right. It just may be a little volatile in between on a day-to-day view. Now, that's not the only data we're producing these days, Anthony. We've got the live miner margin on the website. This one is of interest because it's based on live data. One of the inputs is obviously Bitcoin price, and we're now starting to see the margins increase quite nicely for the miners. Q2, obviously going to be a tremendous quarter for anyone hodling Bitcoin. When you start to look at the fair value of the Bitcoin on balance sheet, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars per coin, they're also starting to make a lot more money on the margin side of things as well.
Yeah, it just gives people indication there. Like you say, the two drivers, cost per power and efficiency of the mining machine. And if you've got that piece of data there, you can pretty much calculate the energy cost required to mine Bitcoin, and then you can look at the margin based on the daily revenue received from Bitcoin. So, you've got a couple of miners there, or three or four miners have actually showing over a 70% margin. Now, this is effectively the revenue less the energy cost there. After that, you then got to think about the operating costs. So the operating costs of the company will be things like salary, will be things like legal costs, professional fees, depreciation, stock compensation, all the other costs there. And then you've got other financing costs to think about. So you've got interest if you've got loans. Some of these companies look at convertible notes, which are interest applied to that. So, and they need to be paid as well. So, you've got to pay all those bills. So this is just literally the gross margin, revenue less energy, a lot more cost to go against that there. And if you look at that there, you think, well, actually, quite a few of those miners should be making profits overall. Well, believe you me, only one of those miners made a profit when you start looking at all the operating and financing costs that come out, and that was IREN.
Yeah, it certainly was. Now, if you're enjoying these tables, you want to share them, use them anywhere online or in your tweets, feel free. We've installed a share button here, Anthony, as well. There's a number of different tables. You can see the example, a Bitcoin mined per exahash by month here, but the export feature is now available on the website as well. While you're there, I would also encourage you to take a look at Miner Madness 3.0. The leaderboard continues to shuffle here, Anthony. I'm not doing so hot on the analyst side of things. You're about mid-pack, but we've still got a number of weeks left in the competition. And overall, for me, it's just nice to see everyone in the green, regardless who's on top.
Yeah, it's been a great competition, and actually, I looked this morning at the people at the bottom of the leaderboard, well over 20% up is the lowest point. So, if you've invested in your miners back on April the 11th when we started the competition, we're now May the 22nd today. So that's literally 6 weeks of investing, and you've got a return of over 20%. That's not a bad return in 6 weeks there. Obviously, at the top of the leaderboard, it's a whole different ball game there. And the fact that we've talked about already, Gryphon Mining have had a phenomenal run. That's enabled 2 or 3 people to have their $300 value is now in excess of $1,000 value. So making over $700 profits. So, and I think we've spoken with at least one of those leaders at the moment who did actually invest in the miners that they chose as well. So good for them. They've picked 3 absolute corking stocks there, well over $1,000 value at the moment, and the leader with 372%. Not a bad return for 6 weeks, Bryce.
Not bad at all. I'll take that any day. Now, next week, Anthony, we've got more travel in the schedule. We're headed down to Las Vegas. There's a number of events going on. We're going to be meeting up with subscribers, obviously the Bitcoin mining companies, a number of meetings on the books. You've also got the speaking task here on Wednesday, the 28th of May, taking the stage, talking about a similar panel actually to one I hosted in Amsterdam, reusing Bitcoin mining heat. And this is a topic we've actually mentioned a few times recently on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. It's important. And it goes back to that conversation we just had now about miners making sufficient profits. If you can't make enough profits out of mining, and the fact that you're generating significant amount of heat, maybe there are opportunities to utilize some of that heat to get a second revenue stream. And we know that some miners are already doing this. So we know that Mara Holdings in Scandinavia are heating, I think they're heating a village with about 11,000 properties. And they're doing that at sort of like cost neutral. So they're not there to make money out, but it's a nice social responsible thing that they're doing there. And that's really good to see. We've seen Hive Digital use some of the heat from their facility is going to, it's been heating greenhouses and commercial businesses, and again, great for the community. And also, if you think about what they're going to do in Paraguay, they mentioned they're going to be heating a number of schools for free in the local area. So a great, these miners do social responsibility. But this panel's trying to talk about, how to improve mining management efficiency with the use of AI, with the use of demand response, and the use of heat reuse. And so it's going to be an interesting panel. Looking forward to catching up with 3 CEOs of the companies that are on the panel there. I've already been on a panel before with Andre, so that's going to be an easy one to get to see again. I've met him at a few conferences now, so I'm familiar with that. But it would be nice to meet Dan and Jolie as well to go through that topic, and hopefully the audience get a real insight into what these companies are doing in that space.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And if you guys are going to be down in Vegas, I know a few people have messaged us already. Make sure you drop a comment below or send us a message on Twitter. Now, final portion of the podcast here, Anthony, just wrapping up some Bitcoin miner specific news. So we've got Hive, Soluna, and DMG on deck here. Maybe we start with DMG. We've got an interview with the CEO, Sheldon Bennett, and COO Stephen Eliscu tomorrow. Going to be going over their Q2 earnings. So we talked about the fact some of these miners don't operate on a traditional calendar year earnings year. However, this is going to be a good discussion. They're starting to install some next-gen miners. They're growing their hash rate. And as we've talked about previously on the channel, their HODL currently represents almost the entire company's market cap. So could be an opportunity for a value play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sheldon's probably one of the OGs in the mining space. He's been around Bitcoin mining longer than pretty much everybody else. Maybe you could add Ben Gagnon to that list of people that have been in as long as Sheldon. But Sheldon's built this company up himself there. He's also helped deliver sites for other companies. He's got an immense amount of knowledge in the space, very well respected. I mean, when you talk about immersion cooling, they talk about DMG's study. They were the first ones to provide a study in immersion cooling. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. And now we're seeing miners using more and more immersion cooling in their facilities. Now, one thing they are is that they haven't gone out there and sort of like hit the capital markets as hard as some of the other miners, and therefore not being able to grow as quickly. But they do grow organically. They're already over 2.1 exahash. They've got a target, I think it's close to 3 exahash for the rest of this year. Let's see how they get on with that there. Maybe Sheldon can give us some insight into how they can deliver that. Bear in mind, they also have a focus now on delivering HPC AI, and they recently purchased, I think, some fabricated buildings to help start, deliver that type of service there. But in Q2, they achieved revenues of 12.6 million. That's up 9% from Q1, so that's a nice increase there. Probably helped by the actual Bitcoin price, because they mined 91 Bitcoin in Q2. That was down from 97 Bitcoin. And we talk about, why this production numbers are down. It's the mining difficulty. So the mining difficulty really impacts these miners there. 6 Bitcoin down, that's, at today's prices, that's nearly $700,000 of revenue that you're not getting because of the difficulty in literally a quarter. And to a company like DMG, that's a lot of much needed money. But still managed to increase the revenues there. In terms of cash flow, 1 million down in as compared to the previous quarter, and but the company did actually mine more Bitcoin than it sold. So mined 7.1 Bitcoin more than it sold. So it's selling a little bit of Bitcoin to obviously pay for some of the activities it's doing along the lines of with the bank that they're setting up, and we'll get more information tomorrow from Steve and Sheldon on how that's working out. Now that looks like it's going to be a revenue driver come in the future there. No revenue taken in this second quarter for them. Hash rate up to 2.1. As at the end of the quarter, it was 1.76, but we know it's over 2.1 now. And again, that's up 8% quarter on quarter. And this is where it gets interesting. Total assets, 129.5 million as at the end of Q2. Now that's in Canadian, so around about probably $90 million dollars in assets. Market capitalization massively lower than that. So they've got something like 100 for every dollar you're investing in DMG, you're getting about 160% of assets for every dollar. Now, overall, if we look at the company from an accounting perspective, they actually delivered a loss And per share, that was just 2 cents, 2 Canadian cents per share. If you look at from a cash perspective, they were able to meet all their cash costs. So if you look at the loss, take away the depreciation element, take away stock compensation, they were cash flow positive for that quarter. So they managed to do everything within their means. Obviously, shareholders want to see higher hash rate growth, but they are bringing in some of the highest rated machines from Bitmain. They've got the Bitmain S21s there. They've got the liquid cooling in place as well, so that's helping them. That'll help with efficiency. And DMG on a month by month basis, are in that sort of top 5 or 6 miners across the board there. And when you consider how many public miners there are, that's not a bad place to be.
No, it's definitely not. And looking forward to that one tomorrow, Anthony. Now, we just heard from the team at Hive. We had Aydin Kilic on the program talking about the rapid expansion, putting up 1 exahash in a week in Paraguay. Now they've come out as committed with consistent communication, hitting that next milestone, 9.5 exahash per second, well on their way to that 25 exahash by year-end goal.
Yeah, and they only just recently announced the increase to 8.5 x or 8.3, I think, exahash. Now it's 9.5 with less than a week time, and this is a really good way of showing they're going to deliver their strategy this year. I mean, they've got a big target still to achieve. I mean, let's not run before we can walk, but 25 exahash by the end of the year. That's their goal. They've already paid for the first 18 exahash. These sites are coming to fruition quite quickly, so we should see rapid increase as soon as you get the miners in there. As I say, the first 18 exahash has been paid for. They have paid deposits on the remaining, 6 to 7 exahash, and we know that they have capital available to complete those purchases to fulfill their strategy by the end of the year. So it's really, really positive. If you look at how many Bitcoin, this now takes this 9.5 effectively gives them 4.5 Bitcoin a day, and bear in mind, at the end of I think April, it was 102, so literally just over 3 Bitcoin a day. This is now a massive increase, and at the same time as they're increasing their hash rate, they're also increasing their efficiency as well. So Aiden if you haven't managed to see the podcast we did with Aiden earlier this week, I suggest you take a look at it there, because he really, as well as being a CEO, he's an engineer. So, and one thing we know about engineers, they're all about the numbers. And he was able to go in and really articulate about, efficiency, about energy prices, about the impact, what that means to Hive, what they can deliver in Paraguay, what that means to the company. I suggest, if you're a shareholder or potential shareholder, go and have a look at that video there, because he really does spend time to go through and explain, and even goes back to talk about previous periods of how things were reflected there and how they can also play into what's happening going forward. So really, really good podcast with Aidan. We always enjoy having him and Frank when Frank's available. Obviously, Frank is not just the chairman of Hive, but he's also the CFO of his own investment fund, and he's also part in the gold market and also in the airline business as well. So Hive keeps him on his toes as well. But it was great just to have Aidan on this time. I'm sure we'll get Frank on the podcast in the not too distant future.
Yeah, US gold. Frank's got his hand in all sorts of hard money, Bitcoin and gold here. So that was good. I too was impressed with how Aydin was rattling off those numbers and efficiencies of each type of machine and each series. That was impressive. Now, Bitcoin, Anthony, just flirting with 112,000 now as we close out. Soluna, this is a good update as well. John, bless his soul, he's a good CEO, didn't give us any hints yesterday, but they've come out now with their first solar-powered project. So obviously very big in the renewable energy space, traditionally working with wind farms. Now, John, showing that they have the ability to work with another type of renewable as well.
Yeah, and Project Annie, they name their projects after leading females in industry, and so Project Annie, it's a 75 megawatt site. It's co-located with a 114 megawatt solar farm in Texas, and it reiterates what Soluna are trying to do. They're looking to continue to increase their renewable computing for the AI and for Bitcoin mining. They're going to use both of these businesses going forward there and use them in tandem. I mean, it was great. So and again, we interviewed, both Johns last night on the call, and if you didn't, if you're not a shareholder in Soluna, have a listen to what they're saying. This is a company that the market is valued at 10 million, just over $10 million. Already got a significant pipeline. I mean, they've got 75 megawatts that was already online for Bitcoin mining and host mining already. That's now got over 100 megawatts, and they've got significantly more. I think over 100 megawatts coming online this year with the projects that they're delivering, including Project Dorothy 2, Project Catty, where ground is already broken. This is another project there, and their pipeline now exceeds 773 megawatts of green data centers, either in operation, construction, or development at the moment. This is a company that's worth effectively $10 million according to the market. So again, if you get, you get half an hour spare, have a listen to the podcast yesterday. We do, as well as being on YouTube, it's on 17 different downloaded platforms there, all the big ones like Apple, Amazon, Spotify. You can find all the podcasts on all those sites there. I really, get you to listen to some of these. We've had some phenomenal interviews in the last sort of week or so. We had Dan Roberts from IREN, fantastic podcast, probably one of the best we've ever done. Dan was on absolute form there, did not shy away from any questions, and we tried to ask a few challenging questions in there. Nothing, we don't want to hear about new stuff, and that's not in the public domain. We want to sort of like get more colour on some of the things that they're doing, and you know what, Dan provided a lot of colour. And then we had Jeff Labarge from Bitdeer came on and gave us Bitdeer, a different company moving in a slightly different direction. They're producing their own mining machine. How many companies can say they're producing their own mining machine and have got experience in doing that and are probably going to do a really good job of doing that as well? So, and then obviously on Saturday we had Ben Gagnon from the CEO of Bitfarms. Ben's always a treat to have on the podcast. Some of his podcasts are the highest rated podcasts that we do, and Saturday's podcast was no exception to that. Shareholders have been obviously thinking of the share price over the last 12 months, but you know what? Listen to what Ben has to say about what's happening in their strategy now to focus on AI, HPC co-location, and then listen to what he says about the likes of the sites that they're in Pennsylvania, that they're going to start putting right for HPC. So Panther Creek is a renowned site, and we've heard this from not just obviously Bitfarms, but from people outside of Bitfarms that says that's a really great site. It ticks every box in terms of power, in terms of fiber, in terms of location, in terms of water. And if Ben can get the right team to partner with to build that site, who knows the type of client that will want a site that ticks every box. And they've got 4 sites there. They've got something like 1 gigawatt of power available for HPC co-locating. They're not going to focus on growing any more Bitcoin mining going forward, but they're definitely focused on the HPC side, and who can blame them? We've just seen the CoreWeave IPO happen in the first quarter of the year. Look at the CoreWeave share price since that's opened there. I mean, it's gone from strength to strength. That company's valued well over 50, 60 billion. I can't even think what the price is. It changes so often during the daily basis. It's probably over $60 billion as we speak there. Core Scientific are going to be producing half of the work required, half of the HPC that CoreWeave need. Core Scientific are going to be producing, and Core Scientific's market capitalization is a touch over $3 billion, and and they've got a contract for well over $10 billion over the next 12 years, and by the end of this year, 250 megawatts of that 590 are going to be in play. That's nearly half the whole contract energized by the end of 2025, and the majority of the contract will be completed by the end of 2026, moving into the early part of 2027. Once it's all completed, it's effectively the best part of $800 million, $900 million of revenue a year, and a margin between 71-75%. And that's when I say margin, that's not gross margin, that's total margin, that's all the costs included. So one thing about the miners going into HPC, they're not shied away from letting all the details out there. TeraWulf have done the same as well with their contract with Core 42. It's, Core Scientific were the first to land a big contract, and they've made no hidden agenda about what they're going to receive. It's all down there, and we'll be doing more and more updates this week to highlight what that looks like in terms of contract, in terms of payments, what to expect. They're already starting to receive payments this month from CoreWeave. So once they feed into their quarter earnings, which will be as at the end of June, maybe that'll give the market a little bit of a nudge to say, hey ho, we're not just a Bitcoin miner anymore, we're now getting significant revenues from HPC. And with 250 megawatts by the end of the year, just think about the revenues that will be coming in supporting that. The annualized revenue will be absolutely catastrophic compared to what they're earning as a miner at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly will be. We've been talking about when this re-rating will occur for companies like Core Scientific that are transitioning from Bitcoin mining to HPC. We know the multiple differences between these two sectors is monstrous. And as Ben Gagnon said, if they're able to even capture a portion of that, even 10x, 15x, compared to the traditional data center industry at 20 or 25 times earnings, that's a substantial increase from where they're getting at Bitcoin. Not to mention, regardless of the share price, Anthony, these companies are bringing in more revenue day after day as Bitcoin price continues to move upward, and that gives them more flexibility and time to really build out those HPC plans and operations. So a gift is what we think this is, you guys, an opportunity to get in on Bitcoin and AI, two huge macro trends right now with companies that are not, in our opinion, being fairly valued or even given the valuation for their underlying assets. So make with that what you will. Let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the miners themselves. Are you getting frustrated? Do you feel like they are still presenting an opportunity for investment here? Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.